Before we begin, Professor Dumbledore would like to say a few words.
I have a few start-of-term notices I wish to announce.
I'm Noah.
And I'm Ruben.
And today we're going to be talking about Harry Potter, the Goblet of Fire.
Yeah, so this is the book that we chose to read over the 2-month period that Mr. Collins gave us, about 700 pages. And it talks about Harry Potter and his adventures with his friends, Hermione and Ron. We didn't get to finish this book, it was too long, but we really did like this book. So Noah, why don't you tell us what we liked about this book?
Before we get into that, I want to give like a great thanks to J.K. Rowling. Like honestly, like she highlighted like the very specific parts of becoming a teen, like the romantic jealousy, puberty. Like she did a very great job, and it caters to a more mature audience rather than like a child's audience.
So basically more of a coming of age book.
Yeah,
thanks, Noah.
Exactly, yeah. Although we liked this story and the plot was very interesting, it did have some undertones of racism, discrimination, and bullying. Speaking of racism, how does Draco Malfoy relate to that in the story?
Yeah, so Draco Malfoy is a character that is a pureblood. A pureblood is someone who is of magical lineage, that their whole family is like magical. And his family, like his group of people, they really just don't like people who are muggles. And muggles are people who are not magical.
Honestly, in this book, I just feel like he's so entitled.
Yeah. He thinks that he's like better than other people, and an example of this is when he says, I really don't think that they should let other Muggle-borns in. Do you? They're just not the same. They've never been brought up to our own ways. Some of them have never even heard of Hogwarts until they got letters, magic. So, like, that statement just has undertones of racism and, you know, bullying in that statement, and he's just a character that really embodies, you know, what race discrimination is in the book that we read. And he's a great example of how bullying can harm others and how bullying in our society today is a problem.
I agree too. And speaking of Draco Malfoy's entitlement, another example of his bullying and discrimination is against the great house of Dobby. And that really disappoints me because Dobby is a great house of him. He did nothing wrong to no one. He can't really control it. But how does that relate to discrimination against house elves?
Yeah, so something that goes over a lot of people's heads is that the house elves are actually slaves, and they're not servants. Some people may think that they're servants, but in reality they're slaves. And the reason that they're slaves is because people like Draco Malfoy use the servants who are muggles or, you know, not purebloods to basically serve them because they are the purebloods and they are the people with that magical blood. Segueing from the topic of Draco, Noah, why don't you tell us how this book can relate to real world instances? Because racism is, you know, a real thing, and bullying is a real thing that a lot of people face.
And we actually have our sources right here. The first primary source is about harassment and bullying. It says, today U.S. Senator Patty Murray, U.S. Senator Tammy Baldwin, and U.S. Representative Marty Kahn introduced the Highly Clemency Higher Education Anti-Harassment Act 2023 to help prevent bullying and harassment at colleges and universities around the country. The bill would finally require colleges and universities receiving federal support to establish anti-harassment policies to prohibit harassment based on actual or perceived race, color, national origin, sex orientation, gender identity, disability, or religion.
Wow, that's very progressive.
Long list. And it would require schools to recognize cyberbullying as a form of harassment too.
Nice, thank you, Noah. It's very good.
Ruben, why don't you explain our secondary source?
Okay. The secondary source reads, the bullies repeatedly pushed second grader Jake Ross to the ground. They took his backpack. He recalled the schoolmate yelling, "Who's going to help me beat up Jake today?" A student later threatening him, saying, "I'm going to kill you if you told anybody." That's your secondary source. And that kind of relates to Draco Malfoy, don't you think?
It does, because the bullying in that is also very similar to the bullying in Harry Potter.
Exactly. And our third source, which is a primary source, reads that today Representative Jim Banks, Senator J.D. Vance introduced the College Admissions Accountability Act, which basically requires universities to not discriminate anyone based off their color, religion, you know, all this stuff that we talked about before, and that they basically have to get, you know, admissions into college based off their academic abilities and not anything relating to their constitutional rights. Noah, why don't you read our final source?
Our final source states a total of 15.8 students reported cyberbullying and 25% reported school bullying in the past 12 months. Majority of 60% of cyberbullying victims were also school bullying victims. 30% of school bullying victims were also cyberbullying victims. So it's kind of like a relating factor between the two, cyber and real.
Exactly.
And
So
it just shows that it's going on in the real world.
yeah, these problems are very prominent in the real world, and we need to do stuff to, stop this bullying and to, keep it from not happening anymore. Because this is stuff that, happens to a lot of us, and a lot of us go through it, and it's something that, we really need to work on. So now that we know how this book connects to the real world, how would you tell us some lessons that we learned in this book? Noah?
Some lessons that we learned are prejudice and discrimination, bullying and intolerance, and finding unity and acceptance. With prejudice and discrimination, throughout the series, characters like Hermione, who's a Muggle-born, face discrimination because of their heritage. In the Goblet of Fire, it highlights these issues showing how prejudice can manifest in various forms, such as the disdain toward non-pureblood wizards and magical creatures. With bullying and intolerance, characters like Harry Potter and Neville Longbottom face bullying and ridicule with their peers, particularly Draco Malfoy, who we talked about earlier. The book illustrates the harmful effects of bullying and the importance of standing up to bullies. It also emphasizes the value of friendship and solidarity in overcoming adversity. Finally, unity and acceptance. On a great note, despite the prejudices and conflicts within the wizarding world, in the Goblet of Fire, with moments like the Tri-Wizard Tournament, it brings together students from different magical schools, fostering bonds and understanding among them.
That's great. So while we did learn about bullying and racism in this book, the final message at the end of this book, the most important one, was the one of unity and acceptance that we all need to learn.
Exactly. With all these lessons learned, Ruben, what is the final conclusion that we have for our audience?
Yeah, so the final conclusion that we have for our audience for this book, Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, is that the themes of racism and discrimination are very intricately woven into the book. And throughout the novel, we witness various effects of prejudice and bigotry through various effects and attitudes in the book. By examining these themes in Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, readers are encouraged to reflect on parallels between the wizarding world and prominent and foreign conversations about the harmful effects of prejudice and discrimination in the real world. So, we really like this book. Thank you, Mr. Collins, for giving us this assignment.
Great opportunity.
Great opportunity to read a
Very great book.
Very great book.
700 pages.
We hope that you read The Wizarding World of Harry Potter.
Yeah.
It's a great series. Thank you.